The next part is 2.3, making bread dough. We're still on lesson 2 of unit 2. This shows a table. It says honey, and flour. Okay, it says 8 and 10, 20 and a blank, 13 and a blank, and 20 and a blank. This one is significantly harder for the students because, as you'll notice, there is not a nice number that you can multiply 8 by to get to 10. There is a number, but it's not a whole number. So students will mainly say, oh, there's nothing you can multiply here to get to 10, but that's untrue. Obviously, we're going to find out what that number is here in just a minute. The first thing I would do on this table is notice the relationship between 10 and 20, and I can immediately add this number in. So I know that 10 times 2 gives me 20, which means I can take 8 times 2 to give me 16. When I see that I have 16 here, I'm going to think to myself, okay, how far away is 16 from 20? I know that it's 4 away. So I'm going to add 4 to my table here. I add 4 to my table because I know that I can get to 4 multiple ways here. I can either divide 8 by 2 or I can divide 16 by 4. I'm going to go ahead and, sorry, I forgot to put times 2 here. I'm going to go ahead and go from 8 to 4. Okay, so I know that that's going to be divided by 2. And then I'm going to take this side, I have to do the same thing, and I'm going to take 10 divided by 2. That gives me 5. You'll notice that if I did start with the 16, I would have to divide 16 by 4 to get here. Then if I took 20 divided by 4, I would still end up with 5. So it doesn't matter which number of the table you decide to use. I just like to use something that's easy and small for me to work with, which would be the 8 and the 10. Next, I can use these numbers on either side, and I can add them up and down. Now the reason I can add them is because if you think about this question, you're making bread dough. So let's just say one day I decided to make a batch of bread dough that took me 16 tablespoons of honey, and obviously 20 cups of flour, okay? Then the next day I decided to make a bunch of more bread dough that took 4 tablespoons of honey, okay, and 5 cups of flour. So between those 2 days, I used a total of 20 cups of honey and how many cups of flour? This was day 1, day 2. And I'm writing a total on this line, okay? So if I wanted to, I could add 16 plus 4. I'm just going to write the addition sign right here, okay? And I know that these two numbers added together give me 20. I'm sorry about how horribly I'm writing my arrows. Okay, next I'm going to have to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so I added up how many honeys I used. Now I get to add up how much flour I used. So I add 20 and 5. That gives me, these two numbers added together, give me 25. Now I'm left with 13. And the thing about 13 is that it is a prime number. So there is no factors of 13 besides 1 and 13. That means I have to get this side to 1 somehow. Okay? You can do it any way and you'll get the same number. Most students today went from 8 to 1 just because we had been working with 8 and that's what they're most comfortable with. You could also go from 4 to 1, 16 to 1, 20 to 1. Any of them will work and you'll get the exact same answer. So if I decide to go from, let's just try 4, okay? I know to get from 4 to 1, I have to divide by 4, which means I'm going to divide this side by 4 as well. So that leaves me 5 divided by 4 goes in 1 point. Drop down my 0. 2. Drop down another 0. 5 times. 1.25. Just for fun, I'll do 8 and 10 because I know that it will be the same answer. So if I go from 8, I would divide by 8. 10, I would divide by 8. So I would take 10 divided by 8 is 1. 2. 5. Sorry, I forgot to finish this problem over here. How horrible of me. Okay, there we go. So you can see that they're the same. That would work. It would be the same as if you did 16 and 20 or 20 and 25. You can do it any way to get to 1. Okay, so this is still our constant of proportionality, which means anything on this side, I can multiply by this number to get to anything on this side. And anything on this side, I can divide by this number and get anything on this side. So I know that since this is on the opposite side of my constant of proportionality, I can multiply 13 times 1.25, I'm sorry. So I will do that very quickly, but not so quickly that I make a mistake. And then I come in 2 decimal places. 16.25. That's the number that belongs here. If you took 1.25 times 8, you would get 10, because it is the constant of proportionality on the whole table. Just to prove that, I will do it very quickly. Come in 2 decimal places, and I have 10. It works all the way down. So that is how you would figure out that table. Next, it says, what is the proportional relationship represented by this table? So how I decide to do that is I'm going to use the constant of proportionality, and I'm going to take variables. I'm going to say H for honey. This is variable H. And F for flour. And I'm going to write an equation. So I have 1.25, that's my constant of proportionality, times my opposite column. I'm going to give that variable H to my opposite column, equals F. That means anything, any amount of honey, I multiply by 1.25 gives me the amount of flour needed to make the bread. I'm going to stop this video here and I will start it again on the next one.